Hiya, welcome back to Green Hill Gaming, where I share my passion of video games with the whole wide world. In this live stream, I'll be giving the honest truth of the Resident Evil series. So sit back, relax, but as always, and more importantly, enjoy the live stream and feel free to join in on the conversation as well. So I'm just going to share my live stream onto Facebook, so more people will have the chance to watch the live stream, and if they want to, they can join in on this conversation. So yeah, this is a conversational live stream. There will be gameplay. I'm of course playing Resident Evil Director's Cut. Okay, I'm just going to get straight to it. Resident Evil is dead. Now, before I go any further, I'm not talking about the business side of things. Okay? Obviously, Resident Evil is a very, very profitable series. Okay, Capcom makes a lot of money with the Resident Evil series. I'm not talking about that. I don't care about that. Okay? When I say Resident Evil is dead, I'm talking about the concept of what Resident Evil was. It's dead. And it died after Code Veronica. Every game after Code Veronica is not a Resident Evil game. Just let Chris do his thing there,
Wesker?
and I'll get back to the conversation then.
What happened to Jill and Wesker?
So as I was saying before Chris Redfield interrupted me, every game after Code Veronica is not a Resident Evil game. Some of those games are good, some of them are bad, and some of them, 6, is utterly disgusting. But none of those games are Resident Evil games. They're Resident Evil games by name, by the brand. But that's about it. Tank controls, fixed camera angles, true 100% survival horror, including true inventory and ammo management, and the classic save system. That's what made Resident Evil. But people who don't like that, well, see, they were born in the mid-2000s. Around the time when 4 released on the Nintendo GameCube originally. So those people base a good Resident Evil game off of Resident Evil 4. So that's why they don't particularly have any problem with 4, 5, 6, Village, 7. I don't really have a problem with those games. I actually played all those games, with the exception of 6, and I enjoyed them for what they were, but they're not Resident Evil games. Oh yeah, also Resident Evil 1 Remake and 0, they're both classic Resident Evil games. Those are Resident Evil games. I actually kind of hate the term classic Resident Evil because it almost it almost like sidelines the actual Resident Evil games. Other classic Resident Evil games. Now we have modern Resident Evil games. No, what you have is actual Resident Evil games from Resident Evil 1, including the remake, up to Code Veronica and Zero, the prequel. And then you have games that just call themselves Resident Evil games, but they're not actually Resident Evil games. That's the truth. You can put whatever spin you want to put onto it, but that's the truth. And again, I just want to remind people that when I say that Resident Evil is dead, and when I say that Resident Evil died after the release of Code Veronica, because I believe that was the final Resident Evil game, and Zero, I'm not talking about it from a commercial perspective, because obviously commercially Resident Evil makes a lot of money. You know, it's very successful. You know, it's a commercial success, obviously. I'm not talking about the business side of it. I'm talking about the actual, like, concept of what is Resident Evil as a game. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, so it's important that people understand that. Now, it's going to be a short enough live stream. It's a discussion as well. I see you have 2 people watching the live stream. Feel free to join in on the conversation as well. Don't write around, you know, in your comments. I mean, the thing about it is, like, Resident Evil means a lot of different people. Resident Evil means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but particularly the people who grew up in mid-2000s, and you know, their first Resident Evil game would have been like 4 onwards, and they base a good Resident Evil game after they base a good Resident Evil game off of those games 4 onwards. So they're the ones who don't like the tank controls and the fixed camera angles and the true sense of survival horror. That's okay. But the truth of the matter is, any Resident Evil game released after Code Veronica and Zero is not a Resident Evil game. I mean, some people might say it's a controversial statement, some people might say it's a stupid statement, and that's perfectly fine. But I'm spitting the truth, you know? I'm spitting the truth here, that nobody seems to want to say. I mean, people will counter, people will like counteract what I'm saying by saying, oh, but Johnny, what do you mean Resident Evil is dead? It sells so well, how could it be dead? Again, I'm not referring to sales. I'm not referring to the commercial side of things. I'm actually referring to the concept of what Resident Evil is. Hello, Power Slave Productions. I know you're going to like this live stream. You're going to like this conversation. Feel free to join in on the conversation as well. It's always great to have you on Green Hill Gaming. Welcome to the live stream. Feel free to join in on the conversation. I hope you're doing well. Resident Evil 3 Remake was terrible. The way I would put it is every Resident Evil game, right, so-called, every game that released after Resident Evil Code Veronica and Zero is not a Resident Evil game. They're only Resident Evil games by name. What makes Resident Evil is the fixed camera angles, the tank controls, the true inventory and ammo management, the save system, and true survival horror, and also atmospheric music, actual atmospheric music, like what you're hearing right now. That's Resident Evil, that's what it is. The people who don't like that are the people who were born in the mid-2000s, the Zoomers. And they base a good Resident Evil game off of 4 onwards. So to them, that's Resident Evil. But the reality is, like, every game after Code Veronica and Zero is nothing more than an action horror game. Let's face it. I mean, the thing about it is, you'll hear people saying, oh, but Johnny, even the original Resident Evil 3 was action. See, the thing is, define action. What I'm doing right now is technically action. But, like, let's face it, like, I mean, like, Resident Evil 1, including Remake, all the way to Code Veronica and Zero, are predominantly survival horror games. I mean, you're less than 5 minutes into Resident Evil 4 and you're jumping on a fucking window. Okay, that's action horror, right? Let's not make any bones about it. That's action horror, alright? That's action horror. I think I actually missed out on ammo. No, I didn't actually. Now, am I done with the Resident Evil series? No. No. Well, see, that's an interesting statement, isn't it? Because I don't consider any Resident Evil game, I don't consider any game after Code Veronica and Zero as a Resident Evil game. So when I say I'm finished with the Resident Evil series, I was finished with the Resident Evil series after I finished Code Veronica and Zero. So will I be playing game? Will I continue to play games after Code Veronica and Zero? Yes. Will I enjoy them? Yes. Will I appreciate them for what they are? Yes. But I just want to face facts, and I just want to face the truth and tell people the truth. Say it as it is. You know, a lot of Resident Evil YouTubers don't say it as it is. They feel like disrespecting the series or disrespecting Capcom. It's called the truth. The truth is not disrespectful. The truth is the truth. And the truth of the matter is, Resident Evil as a series is dead. And again, I'm not talking about it from a commercial perspective. I'm talking about it from the concept of Resident Evil has died after Code Veronica and Resident Evil Zero, because those were the last two Resident Evil games. Every other game after that were just action horror games, just had the title Resident Evil in them. As I mentioned, 5 minutes into 4 and you're jumping out a window. You know, I mean, 5, don't really have to say anything about 5. And I mean, regardless of the story, it doesn't matter. The story doesn't matter, it was something I would very rarely say. But I'm not, regardless of the story, every game released after Code Veronica and Zero are just action horror games with the title of Resident Evil in them. So the series is dead. The series has been dead for a long time, to be quite honest with you. OG RE3 was good, but the remake, a lot of people were actually disappointed by the remake of 3. I think 1 is the best remake of all time, not just in Resident Evil. Resident Evil is about Leon and his leather jacket. Chad, I love your comments. Chad, as always, very welcome to the live stream. How are you keeping? As of late, hope you're doing better. You're always welcome to the live stream, Chad. Always great to have you in the live stream. I don't know why I feel like I'm going backwards, but I always feel that way. Even years after playing this series, I always feel like I'm going backwards or something. I'm going the wrong way, but it is what it is. I'm not really doing a walkthrough kind of video in this live stream or anything like that. So yeah. So yeah, 5 spoke for itself. I mean, 5 was just nothing more than just non-stop action. Anyone who denies that, well, see, these are the people who were born in the mid-2000s. And their first Resident Evil game would have been like 4 onwards. So like, it's very hard to get through to those people, because to them that is Resident Evil. Whereas me, I was there from the start. I played the original Resident Evil on PS1. So for me, this is Resident Evil. Fixed camera angles, tank controls, true 100% survival horror with atmospheric music. That's Resident Evil. Get out of here. I don't think he's fully dead. That zombie. 6 is not even worth talking about, to be honest with you. I think we all know how shit of even as a game, 6 is. Did you beat the Alan Wake part? Oh, I did, Chad. You'd be happy to know I did. And definitely, I definitely went the wrong way anyway. Yes, me and you, Johnny, are the old type of Resident Evil players. We've been here from the very beginning. Yeah, I mean, we bought Resident Evil 1 and PS1. We were there from the beginning of the series. So we played Resident Evil, we played Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3. So to us, that's Resident Evil. And to us, that will always be Resident Evil. And then they released Code Veronica. There was a sequel, Zero. There was the remake of Resident Evil. And that's Resident Evil. Like, and all those games had the fixed camera, the tank controls, the atmospheric music, the true 100% survival horror, the save system, where you needed to get ink ribbons. You only had a certain amount of ink ribbons, and you needed to go to ink ribbons to save your typewriters, to save your progress. I mean, all of that, like, that was Resident Evil. I definitely got to get ammo somewhere. So yeah, we are definitely we are definitely from the generation of what Resident Evil actually is, as of to the generation of people who think they know what Resident Evil is because they base Resident Evil off of 4 onwards. That's the truth. I mean, I'm speaking truth in this live stream. And again, am I saying that I'm not going to play? Am I saying that I'm going to no longer continue playing Resident Evil games after Code Veronica and Zero? No, I'm not. Of course not. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's hard to do a discussion live stream and play it at the same time, so I'm completely discombobulated right now in terms of where I am. I think I definitely missed the ammo somewhere, like there's no denying that anyway. So going back up here again. But oh yeah, I know what's going out. No, actually don't. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Does he not have any more ammo? No. Looks like a picture of this mansion. So I think depending on when you were born and what your first Resident Evil game was, like Resident Evil is going to mean something completely different to you. You know, what Resident Evil is going to mean something completely different to you. I actually think it was just seeing the, I haven't seen it yet, but the new animated movie, Dead Island. I'm just looking at it and it's just, I know it's completely, like, this is the completely different, like, media. It's movie, it's animated movie, I know that, but it's like, yeah. I think that was just an example of just that the series is dead. And it's been dead for a long time. What about Fortnite with Resident Evil characters? God, that's a completely, yeah, that's, oh god, yeah, Chad, yeah. That is something as well. Yeah, and the thing is, some of the people who were born in the mid 2000s, who base a good Resident Evil game off of 4 onwards, those people are having a ball of a time. You know, playing Fortnite as Chris Redfield and having Chris Redfield doing emotes, because that's the kind of viewpoint they have on Resident Evil and gaming as a whole, to be honest with you. Hello Strange Music, you are very welcome to the live stream as always. How are you keeping? Resident Evil is dead, in case you haven't heard. And no, Strange Music, I'm not talking about it from a commercial perspective, but from the perspective of the concept of what is Resident Evil. It died from Code Veronica and Zero onwards. Every game that released after Code Veronica and Zero, the prequel, is not a Resident Evil game. There's action horror games with Resident Evil slapped on the title. That's about it really. And I would say that people of, no offense, but people of your generation, Strange Music, who were born, I'm guessing you were born in like the mid 2000s, around the time when 4 released, like you would base a good Resident Evil game off of 4 onwards. So that's your idea of what a good Resident Evil game is. Am I saying that you didn't download a ROM and play an emulated version of the classic Resident Evil games? No. Am I saying that you didn't get access to a classic PlayStation 1 and play those games? No. Am I saying that you didn't download classic Resident Evil games, or sorry, I keep saying classic, let me rephrase it, actual Resident Evil games, you know, from like PlayStation Store or whatever else? No, I'm not saying that. Am I saying that you haven't played these games? No. But the reality is you weren't there when these games originally launched. These weren't your first Resident Evil games that you played. So the reality is, like, you have a different, I know I'm putting words into your mouth here now, and I'm sorry, but that's the truth. I just know it's the truth. Like you're from a different generation, so you view Resident Evil differently than what people like myself, Chad, and Thursday Productions do. I'm doing quite well, thanks for asking, Strange Music. Are we talking about how Resident Evil started as Sweet Home Remake? No, we're talking about how, like, if that's the case, we could talk about how gaming started off as ping pong. No, we're not having that conversation, Strange Music. We're talking about Resident Evil and how it's been dead since the release of Code Veronica and Zero, because those are the only Resident Evil games. Every game after Code Veronica and Zero are just action horror games. Some of those are good, some of those are bad, some of those are really ugly, which is 6, basically. Let's get that out of the way. But they're all action horror games with the Resident Evil title just slapped right on there, you know, just for the sake of it. How do I not have any ammo? I'm just a bit discombobulated right now as to why I don't have any ammo. So feel free to join in the conversation. There's no right or wrong. Don't be scared. No, seriously, there's no right or wrong. I mean, I'm pretty sure I've had this conversation more than once on my channel anyway. I think the last time that I kind of really spoke about it, I was like, I'm done with the series. I don't think I'm done with playing, you know, these games that call themselves Resident Evil anymore. I don't think I'm done. I'm just being real about it. I'm just being honest about it. How in the hell don't I have any ammo? Go back upstairs, I think. Yeah, I don't have much time left on the live stream, about 15 minutes, so, you know, if you want to say something, say it now. Because we're not going to have much time to say it. So when Capcom took note of the fact that a lot of original hardcore fans of the Resident Evil series were not happy with, you know, 5 and 6, regardless of how well they're sold, because as I mentioned, from a commercial perspective, Resident Evil is far from dead. It's alive and kicking. But from the perspective of the game itself and the concept of the game and what made the series into what it is, a lot of fans were not happy with 5 and 6, and they wanted true survival horror. So then we got 7 and we got Village. But the truth of the matter is, those games are just not more than, like, Outlast inspired action horror games. Let's face it. And again, apart from the story, they're not more than just Outlast inspired action horror games. Oh god, I should not be going up here unless I get ammo. I'm not too sure that's actually ammo or not. Oh, it's a key. I got a new dog, lovely. That's nice. What kind of breed? That's nice. New doggy. 7. 7 just felt like Outlast at times. I mean, this first person, you know, similar kind of style in a sense. It was a lot more scarier than 5 and 6. I enjoyed 7. I enjoyed Village. I thought the story in Village was absolutely outstanding. You know, so yeah, but I'm just being real. I'm just like, from the point of view of a Resident Evil game and what makes Resident Evil. 7 and Village, it's just not Resident Evil games. It's like 6 and 5 and 4 as well, you know. Baby pug. That's nice. That's nice. Pugs are actually lovely. I'm happy with your new introduction to your family. Again, feel free to join in the conversation as well if you want to talk about, you know, Resident Evil. I know earlier I was like putting words into your mouth and telling you, but it's the truth though. I mean, like, it is. I mean, you can't change when you were born, can you? It's the truth. Like, I'm guessing you were born in the mid-2000s. Like, that fact can't be changed. So, like, you would have, like, the Resident Evil games, even though they're not Resident Evil, the games that were on the market when you were born were 4 onwards. So, like, that's what you base Resident Evil off of. It is what it is, like, you know what I mean? The reality is, those games, as good as some of them may be, apart from 6, is not actually, they're not actual Resident Evil games, and that's the whole point of this conversation, really. And I mean, obviously, like over the years, Resident Evil has become very successful, which is why, you know, we got movies. We got the Paul Anderson movie series. We won't go into that conversation now, although I love that series, to be quite honest with you. I don't see any issue with that series at all. So again, like, I mean, from a commercial perspective, the Resident Evil brand is a very successful brand for Capcom. Capcom have made a lot of money off of Resident Evil well after the release of Code Veronica. Hell, they've actually made more money off of 4, 5, and 6, and 7 and Village. Those games are actually the highest selling Resident Evil games, more than any other Resident Evil game. So I'm not here denying the popularity of something. Just because something is popular doesn't change anything I've just said. Like, a brand can change completely, but can be still successful or not more successful. So I'm not here talking about like the business side of things. I'm here talking about like the concept of like Resident Evil. And the people who don't like these fixed camera angles and tank controls and the true survival horror, the people who don't like that, well, they're the very people who, you know, went out and made 4 so successful and 5 and 6 so successful, and even 7 and 8. Because they have a completely different view of what Resident Evil is. And they're perfectly entitled to have that view. Of course they are. But the reality is, as I've been saying, every game after the release of Code Veronica and Zero is just nothing more than an action horror game. And again, some of those are good, some of those are bad, and some of those are disgusting. But they're not Resident Evil games. None of them are Resident Evil games. They're just action horror games that use the brand of Resident Evil. It's a shame, really, especially nowadays when you have a lot of series that are going back to their grassroots. I mean, even Final Fantasy 16 is going back to its grassroots in many ways. I know the combat system is completely different, but they went back to its linear approach. The music is a lot better. The story is quality. It's a quality Final Fantasy experience. Look at Sonic. Look at Mario. Going back to their grassroots. Assassin's Creed is going back to its grassroots. You know, it's a shame, really, like that Resident Evil 9 could potentially be about like some fucking paranormal fucking mythology bullshit. Like it's crazy, like it's absolutely crazy. I mean, you can't call that Resident Evil. I mean, it is what it. I mean, fixed camera angles is what it is. I don't hear anyone complaining about the camera angles of FIFA. I don't hear anyone. I mean, if you were playing a game of soccer, would you be looking at yourself? Would you be? It's hard to describe, but like, would you? Do you know the viewpoint of FIFA games? Or no, it's called EA Sports FC. You know the way like it has a top-down kind of view, right? Would that be the view that you would see if you were playing football, soccer, whatever? No, you wouldn't. So I don't hear anyone complain about that. You know, some games have a particular camera angle, and fixed camera angles is what Resident Evil is. And if you don't like that, then you're probably someone that was born in the mid-2000s. You know? Probably good dogs. Yeah, pugs are actually very funny. My pug is lazy. I'm waiting for RE9 to have aliens. It's not even far-fetched. Like, it could very well happen, considering that they exist. We won't go back into that video. No, but yeah, I kind of feel bad for Capcom. I do, because they've done their best to try to keep the series fresh. For so long. Over the years, they listened to their fans. They eventually listened to their fans when the fans said, "Look, for 5 and 6, just too action oriented. Please give us back the horror aspect of the series, the survival horror aspect of the series." And look, they did. Technically, they did with 7 and 8, but they're still not Resident Evil games. Unless a Resident Evil game has fixed camera angles, tank controls, atmospheric music, and a true sense of survival horror in every way, then it's not a Resident Evil game. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. Unless they build off of the blueprint of every Resident Evil game up until Code Veronica and Zero, then it's not a Resident Evil game. And I'm speaking the truth. This is not even an opinion. This is fact. I'm being very confident and cocky about that. And I don't give a shit. It's fact. What I'm saying right now is factual. You don't like it, tough, but it's fact. Okay. You mightn't like a fact, but a fact is a fact. Tony, how's your day going? It's going well, thank you very much for asking. What about yourself? They need to do an origin with Birkin. Story-wise, you see, I'm not really talking about story-wise. I think that the story has always been good, but I want to separate the story here because, like, it's not so much the story that I'm kind of focusing on, really. I know what you're saying, Chad, and I think there's a lot of stuff they could do with the story, believe me. And I agree with you. I think some kind of an origin story for Birkin, or any character for that matter, I think would make for an interesting story. But it's, gameplay wise. Now I literally have to end the live stream now, but yeah, I mean that's all I really wanted to do in this live stream, which is just tell the truth. I mean, you don't hear this from Ingrabin, you don't hear this from any other of those cringy Zoomer motherfuckers who call themselves Resident Evil fans. Fact of the matter is, apart from commercially, Resident Evil as a series has died from Code Veronica and Zero. Every game released after Code Veronica and Zero are not Resident Evil games. They're action horror games with the name Resident Evil. Some are good, some are bad, some are ugly as fuck. Resident Evil is fixed camera angles, tank controls, 100% actual survival horror, and atmospheric music. The people who don't like that are the people who were born in the mid-2000s, whose first Resident Evil would have been 4 onwards, and they base a good Resident Evil game off of those games. That's the truth of the Resident Evil series. Like it or not. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next live stream.